Coming up in today's video, we're getting the garden ready for summer. I'm going to show you everything we did between the months of March to June to prep the space and make it usable. And you're going to be able to watch everything transform and the plants grow and flourish over the course of the video. And I can't wait for you to see what it looks like at the end. Everything's going to have a timestamp so you know exactly how long it took. We're going to take a trip to the garden centre, which honestly had the most beautiful views. And of course, as with everything, there were some hurdles along the way, so I'm going to show you how we worked through them. And yeah, let's get into the video. So it had been longer than I'd like to admit since we sorted anything out here. We usually stay away from the garden in winter and early spring, and after the leather jacket grub debacle, I was nervous to see what it looked like underneath all of this long grass. If you don't know about leather jacket grubs or any of our issues with them, don't worry, I'll be explaining all of that in the video. And hopefully I'll be able to share some helpful information. But yeah, despite my fears, the lawn wasn't looking too bad. But a lot of the time, the long grass can be deceiving. It usually hides any yellowing or patchiness, things like that. So I really don't like coming out into the garden in the winter because everything's just so soggy. It turns into mud so easily because we have really poor drainage. And I wanted to maintain the integrity of the lawn as much as we could so that we could actually enjoy it this summer. And that meant keeping off the lawn as much as we could during the dreary winter months. If you've seen my big garden transformation video or any of the stories about leather jacket grubs, you'll already know we waited so long and worked so hard for a garden we can actually spend time in. And for those of you who've got no idea what I'm talking about, we had so many of these grubs, and these are grubs that eat the roots of your grass, but we had so many that the entire lawn was gone and you could hear them squelching around at night. Apparently it's a problem in new builds in particular because we have so little drainage and the grubs thrive in damp or waterlogged lawns. That's not to say they're exclusive to these types of lawns, you can find them anywhere really, but they are more likely. Anyway, I'm using the most ridiculously small brush to sweep up the grass, and yet again I've lost my dustpan, so sorry if me picking everything up with my hands is frustrating to watch. I've had some very upset commenters in the past when I've picked up things by hand. Sounds ridiculous, but people get wound up by the strangest of things. And I lose things all the time, and yes, I guess it is annoying. My mum finds it annoying as well. All I can say is, try being the person that loses everything all the time. Anyway, this patio is in desperate need of a good jet wash. I'm going to borrow my stepdad's later on in the month. It may not look like it, but there is so much to do in this garden, and I only have so many hours and so much attention span for one day. So I'm going to be bitting and bobbing and getting things done when I find the inspiration and a spare few hours. I don't know about you, but I am really prone to getting fixated on one particular thing. So if I focus too much on the garden, I'll forget my house exists and that will cause chaos. If you've seen my other videos, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I have to be really careful not to become too obsessive and to balance my time well. Doesn't help that once the sun comes out, I lose any semblance of routine, and that routine's already holding on by a thread. I just want to be outside when it's sunny, as most of us do. Anyway, let's see how the herbs have fared over winter. So first up, lemongrass. I was desperately looking for new shoots, but my mum told me they weren't frost hardy. But she also told me this about lemon verbena, and look, it's sprouting new leaves. I'm absolutely chuffed. It was difficult to get a good photo because the camera kept going out of focus, but it's there. So we're just going to tie that back a bit. Next, I'm just going to preen all the old leaves and roots from the alpine strawberries. These plants are like the Terminator. Nothing can get rid of them. So I'm really ruthless when cutting these back because I don't want them to overpower the rest of my herbs. One of my dreams for this garden was that the plants would mostly be things we could eat or add to our cooking or skin routine. And if not that, flowers that are going to attract bees and other pollinators. I talk about it all in my original garden transformation video. I'll make a gardening playlist so that you can find it more easily. But that video is called How We Got Rid of Leather Jacket Grubs, or our 2-year transformation video if you want to check that out. But that one shows how we brought the grass back from pretty much mud and built the pergola and just basically brought the garden to life. And yeah, I don't have a huge space here, but I can still utilise the space I have to help nature in the environment. I'm hoping to add some different herbs this year and maybe get rid of some of the alpine strawberries, but we'll see. The roots of the alpine strawberries really creep me out, especially in the middle of summer when they grow really fast. They remind me of those parasitic worms that live inside praying mantis, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, count yourself lucky. So these are the herbs we've got in the patch currently. We've got lemon verbena, we did have lemongrass, thyme, sage and mint, and I know all about mint spreading fast. So far we've managed to contain it to the far corner, but if that does change, I'll do something about it. In big pots we've got rosemary and lavender, and the lavender isn't very happy at the minute either. I'll show you that in a sec. We also had basil that was in a pot with some daisies, and that didn't survive the winter either. I might add some of that in here. I just want this whole area to be thriving and bustling with life. I don't really want to see the pebbles. And honestly, I am so happy with how everything's done over winter. And obviously, as you watch this video, you're going to see how everything grows as it gets warmer. And I can't wait for you to see it when everything's in bloom. The jasmine, wisteria, honeysuckle. It's the best feeling having a garden that actually feels like a garden now. In this little section, I don't have anything other than alpine strawberries, so I've definitely got to add something new here. And by the way, I'm probably going to be mentioning my mum a lot throughout the video. My mum said this, or my mum told me that. It's because she's an amazing gardener and a fountain of knowledge when it comes to plants. So I go to her for all of my advice. So many of my family members helped me bring my vision to reality with this garden. My stepdad did so much of the building, my mum did loads of planting and tip runs, my dad helped us build a bench, my auntie even lent us her chickens to help get rid of the leather jacket grubs. So I'm extremely grateful and lucky because I'd have probably given up if it weren't for their help. Again, you'll be able to watch all of that in the first video, but I think it's so important to acknowledge that having a supportive and helpful family, friends or community isn't something that we all have. And we don't all have the same means or skills. So yeah, I'm incredibly fortunate. Because I don't know how to build things, I don't have a car, I don't have my licence yet. So there's a lot of things I wouldn't have been able to do without them. And I hope me and Charlie can be as helpful to our boys when they've got their own homes. Anyway, this is how the mint is faring. And like I said earlier, if you know anything about mint, you'll know it's very invasive and it spreads quickly. That's why we have that brick there. But what seems to have happened is it's all spread under the neighbour's fence and died off on this side. I think it's because it's right next to the gate and sometimes we catch it with the bin when we take it out. Or maybe they have more sunlight on their side. So I'm just going to cut all of the old stem away and hopefully some of the baby shoots will grow well. Here's the lavender. The lavender I think is unhappy because it's in a pot and it's been raining so much. They don't really like the damp, but the pot does have holes at the bottom. But maybe that's still not enough drainage for it. And if you can see in a minute, it's sprouting a new baby lavender at the bottom. So hopefully it's going to be happy this summer and I can put loads under our pillow. Here's the jasmine. I'm hoping this jasmine creeps all the way around that structure. This is our plum tree and it's started to grow some new green leaves. And this honeysuckle we thought didn't make it last year. My mum transplanted a bit of hers from her garden because she said it had the best smell. Apologies about the poor quality photo, it's the only picture I could find of it. But yeah, it was not happy, it went dry and crispy really quickly, so we just cut it down, and I was so surprised at the start of March to find it had grown back again. But yeah, my mum always says she talks to her plants and they listen back, so that's what I do now every morning. And that's why I think the honeysuckle came back and the lemon verbena survived winter, and I'm still holding on to the tiniest sliver of hope for my lemongrass. And can I just show you this? I have never kept a poinsettia alive past December, and I'm so hoping he's still with us for this Christmas. It's growing so huge, so fast. So yeah, call me the plant whisperer now, I guess. Anyway, just preening the old leaves off the strawberries. Of course, we've got normal variety strawberries as well. They're my youngest son's favourite. Before I started this channel, I had a whole row of fruit plants in pots. Blackberries, raspberries, different varieties of strawberries. We had the golden raspberries and the pine berries, which are strawberries that taste a little bit like pineapple. We had goji berries, grapes, honey berries. And then when the leather jackets arrived and the grass died, they all withered as well. And I never put two and two together, but I'm thinking that that was the problem. Anyway, I'm cutting the edges of the lawn with scissors again because although so many people recommended that handheld lawn trimming tool to me, I forgot to buy one, so I definitely need to do that this year. We do have a strimmer, but it doesn't work that close to the wall. You can see here that the lawn definitely needs some TLC, So I'm going to aerate it, put down some more nematodes and lawn seed, because I have a sneaking suspicion that the leather jacket grubs might be making a comeback. So hopefully it will be looking a lot healthier very soon. I don't think I mentioned this, but nematodes are what get rid of leather jackets. That's pretty much the only thing that worked for us. We tried everything. We tried picking them out ourselves at night, because they come to the surface at night time. We tried letting the chickens just forage for them. We tried soaking the lawn and putting a sheet of tarpaulin over the top, because this is meant to bring them to the surface. None of these things worked. And we didn't want to use anything chemical that was going to be detrimental to the lawn or the dog or our family. So yeah, I'll go more into detail about what nematodes are and what they do later on. But back to what I'm doing here, I know this seems so time-consuming and unnecessary, but I don't actually mind it. It's one of those little tasks that's just soothing. I can just be outside, it's peaceful, and it was a little break from the chaos that was happening inside the house. I've got 2 young boys and a cocker spaniel, so this was my equivalent of, you know when men sit on the toilet scrolling their phone for ages for a bit of peace and quiet? If they get to do that, so do we. Anyway, still no visitors in the Bee Hotel. If you watched the first video, you'll know I put this up last year and I was really hoping we'd get some visitors. But I'm really holding out hope for this year. A week or so later, we made a start on the sandpit that had been covered since last year. I got the creeps thinking about what was under here, but it wasn't too bad actually. And I know this is probably a task we should have done at the end of summer, but never mind. I had 2 lovely helpers, my mum and Ike. Really, I was my mum's helper on this day because she's a billion times more efficient than me. So this is a Lindsay special, and you can put a face to a name. This is the gardening whiz I was raving about. She's also really hands-on and practical. And first task was to transport all of the toys so that we could get rid of the sand. I wanted to do this because I didn't like the idea of the sand being covered and soggy for that amount of time. I feel like it could be a bit of a breeding ground for bacteria. But you can't leave the sandpit uncovered either because cats like to use them as litter trays. And we have a menace of a neighbourhood cat who likes to hop fences and tear open any bin bags it can get his claws on. One year it was near bin day, so the bin was slightly overflowing and the cat came in and spread the entire contents of the bin all over the garden and we got maggots, so that was amazing. But yeah, I didn't want to take any chances leaving the sandpit uncovered. Lovely conversation this, I do apologise. So we're just trying to get as much of the sand as possible. I know it's not possible to get all of it, but the more the better. And then luckily the tip near my house takes sand. So we're just filling up these buckets, then my mum's going to drop it off. Our tip's good as well because you can just turn up. I know so many others you have to book in advance, so we're really lucky. Speaking of my mum dropping off the sand, guess who finally started their driving lessons again? After going on about it for nearly 2 years. Yes, that's right, it's me. It's not going well. I've had 3 lessons so far and I have no spatial awareness. I can only concentrate on one thing at a time, which is not ideal when you need to be conscious of everything going on. My instructor even went, "I can't believe you got to your test before." But it was over 10 years ago. I thought because I'm a lot more confident now, I'd find it easier, because I thought a lot of it was nerves back then, but it's looking like it's just how my brain's wired. Nevertheless, I am determined. I'll get the hang of it and I will be able to drive my children to the places they need to be, and to little days out when it's just us 3. What we're doing here is just wiping down the sides with some antibacterial wipes. But yeah, I'm highly aware my eldest will be going to middle school in 2 years, and there might be some days he needs me to take him, and with my youngest being school age by then, I can't be in 2 places at once, or at least not if I'm on foot. So yeah, please wish me all the luck in the world with it, I'm gonna need it. Anyway, next it was time to put in the new sand, and Ike had been waiting for this moment for weeks. So of course it was his job to empty the bags. He's very strong. Sand is heavy though, isn't it? My job was to put the empty bags in the bin. I felt like, have you seen those videos on TikTok with Samuel and Dashan, where Samuel does all the packing and the planning and Dashan's just sat there smiling? I'm Dashan. But yeah, we got some multicoloured sand this time, which was very cool. Don't know how long it'll last until everything's mixed up, but it'll be fun while it lasts. It'll be the same as when we get Play-Doh in this house. As soon as Ike gets his hands on Play-Doh, it's mixed up into one grey blob. Painful for me, that is. Anyway, next my mum retrained the wisteria, and I cannot wait for you to see what it looks like in bloom later on in the video. We planted it last year, and this is the first time it's flowered. But because of that, I'm feeling so positive we're going to get some tenants in the bee hotel. Obviously, last year was the first year this garden actually resembled a garden. It wasn't really a place anyone would want to spend time in. So last year we planted loads of baby plants, knowing that they probably wouldn't be established and flowering for a few years. So I'm chuffed to bits the wisteria has. And obviously I couldn't expect any bees or butterflies to want to spend time here then. Next we gave the sandpit toys a wash in a bucket of soapy water. Ike was just pottering around and helping and playing, and I really hope he remembers this time. I still have such fond memories playing in the garden at my grandma's house. How sunny everything always felt, the apples from the apple tree, and the way her shed smelt like creosote. It was such a happy time, and I hope that my children have those same memories, playing in the sandpit in the sun and smelling the jasmine every time a breeze hit. I probably should have washed these in some Milton or a little bit of bleach, but do you know what? Sometimes things can be too sterile, and I firmly believe that a little bit of dirt and bacteria is good for the immune system. Anyway, Ike bought some baby bean plants home from preschool, so next we planted those. He genuinely thinks he's going to climb it and meet a giant. Was very disappointed when I suggested giving the beans to Grandad. We eventually came to a compromise though, and one stalk is going to be for eating, and the other's going to be to meet a giant, so win-win. You can probably tell, but these videos are by far my favourite to make. Not gardening in particular, but the ones where you get to see a little bit of our day-to-day life, the hustle and bustle, how much my parents dote on my children, little trips out, like in today's video I'm going to take you along to the garden centre. You can obviously skip that part and I'll give you the time to skip forward too, but yeah, it just makes my heart so happy. And one day when we have our forever garden, we're going to have ducklings and you're going to be able to watch them grow. I'm manifesting it for myself. Watch this space. When I was younger, I hatched 3 ducks from eggs in my childhood bedroom, and they were called Heston, Ainsley and Raymond. Yes, they were named after chefs. Let me find a picture. They used to lie on a blanket on my lap while I watched movies and have swimming lessons in the bath. They are my all-time favourite animals, and they are so good for a garden because they forage for slugs and snails and things like that. Anyway, as you saw, I gave the sandpit cover a good clean and put it up to dry. The toys were air drying in the sun. And remember earlier on in the video where I said the lavender wasn't happy in the pot because it was too damp? Well, we decided to move it to the rocky bit with the rest of the herbs to see if it liked it better there. Apparently lavender thrives in kind of impoverished soil with lots of rocks and drainage, so I'll keep you updated with that. I also learned that I should have cut the stems down at the end of summer rather than waiting until March next year. So I'm always learning, and maybe this can help any other people watching who are just starting out with gardening as well. So remember at the beginning of the video where I was going round and cutting all the old leaves back and things like that? I should have done that at the end of summer. But yeah, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that it bounces back. After the toys dried, I just popped them back to the sandpit. It was a really sunny day, so I left the cover off for a while to help the new sand dry. The cover is something I'd like to improve very soon. You know the one you saw at the start that had a pool of water in? It is so difficult to put back on, especially where the sandpit's positioned. You need to kind of get round the other side and you can't do that. So I'm hoping one day my stepdad might help us build some more panels to create a wooden lid. Fast forward 2 more weeks and my suspicions were confirmed. The leather jackets were back. After all of my hard work last year, and if you think back to the beginning of the video where it was a bit patchy but not too bad for a first mow, well, this is how fast it takes them to ruin a lawn. And this is what happens, unfortunately, when you don't keep up with nematode treatments in a new build garden. I got too comfortable and I thought, they're not going to come back. And if they do, it'll only be a small amount. Very wrong. But this was still an amount we could come back from. So I treated the lawn and every plant with nematodes. Remember I mentioned them affecting my fruit plants as well? I'm not taking any chances and only treating the lawn. Everything's getting treated. You're really supposed to use one of those sprinkly watering can heads for better distribution. And initially I did use one of those, but I found the nematode mixture kind of congealed and clogged the tiny holes, even after I'd mixed the solution as best I could. And it was just way more trouble than it was worth. So I do it this way now, and it hasn't failed me yet. So yeah, I've really learned a lesson this year, and that is you can't be complacent with the preventative nematode treatments, even if you think they're all gone. So it's back to what I did last year, which was a treatment every 6 weeks. Luckily, I don't have a huge garden to treat because that would be very expensive. And I was pretty confident after all we'd been through with them that this lawn would be looking great again within the month. In the past, I've had so many comments telling me to just give up and get AstroTurf, but it's just not for me. No hate to people who have it, because I know how stressful it can be to keep up with a lawn like this. But the environment's already struggling as it is, and although this is the tiniest little space here, I don't want to add to the damage and take away habitat and leach chemicals into the soil. So yeah, it is extra effort, but I consider it effort for the sake of you and me and the planet. Anyway, the next day I was back after work, repping Asda, happy to help this lawn come back. First, I used an aeration tool to break up the soil and allow for more oxygen and water to get to the roots. This will also make it easier for the new seeds I put down to germinate because the soil won't be so compacted. When I'm trying to grow new grass back, I like to use the bags that have the topsoil in, just to add a bit of nutrients. Because again, going back to the new build thing, not only do we not have a lot of soil, it's generally not good quality soil either. And the way I got the grass to come back faster last year was adding a layer of topsoil. When there's a really persistent patch that won't grow, I also get a trowel and kind of do a little bit of mini rotivation in that area. Because like I said, this soil can become so compacted, it's like rock, and nothing's going to grow when it's like that. Anyway, a week later it was time to jet wash, and I had been looking forward to this for ages. Look how grubby the slabs are. I found it really difficult to get close to the edges without harming the plants, so Charlie put a little wooden border there to protect them. Like I said, I borrowed this jet wash from my stepdad, so I had to give it back, but it was honestly so much fun. I just wish I'd have kept it to clean the door with. You'll see what I mean later on, but it was covered in muddy paw prints and some of it had been turned a yellowish colour by the sun. But yeah, I love watching jet washing videos myself. That is my kind of ASMR. I'm loving watching the guy who cleans the road signs at the minute. He's on YouTube himself. He's called The Sign Guy. And once I watch one video, I am glued for ages. It's so soothing. I just realised when I was applying the nematodes, I didn't really explain what I was doing. So the nematodes come in powder form. You have to keep them in the fridge until you use them, and they have an expiry date. But you mix them in with a certain amount of water, and when you apply them, you have to make sure that the ground is moist because that makes it easier for them to travel and to find the leather jackets. So that's why we had the sprinkler on after I'd applied them with the watering can. Don't do it when it's too hot or too cold. It's easy to find the information online, but if you're anything like me, I retain information more when someone verbally explains it while there are pictures on in the background. And yeah, within 2 to 3 days they'll start doing their job, and that's basically to take over the grub and to stop them from feeding. And within 2 to 4 weeks, you'll see less leather jackets, hopefully. I think I forgot to mention as well that the leather jackets are the larvae of crane flies, and they lay their eggs between August and October. So this is why I'm now going to be treating the lawn preventatively every 6 weeks over summer and autumn, and then again in early spring, because this is when the larvae that are still there are going to be at their biggest and most hungry. Like I said, this is what I did for the first year or so, and my lawn was looking like a golf course last year. It was so green and healthy. And then I just got too comfortable. I'm hoping when we have our forever home and garden, this isn't going to be an issue, and we'll get a garden that has good quality soil and good drainage. It's definitely something I'm really going to take into consideration when we do start looking for a house. But yeah, it's just something we have to deal with currently. And I think we're definitely ruling out new builds for our next home, even though I love that they're fresh and kind of a clean slate that you can decorate to your own liking, and they don't have problems like mould that a lot of older houses do. They just come with their own long list of issues. And I know a lot of people who work on building sites, and not one of them has a good thing to say about new builds. So I guess it's all about weighing the pros and cons, isn't it? Anyway, after jet washing our little storage thingy, can't really call it a shed, but I don't know what they're actually called. But next I moved on to the muckiest part of the patio, and this is where the kids usually sit down and draw with chalk. And last Christmas I spray painted a table here and it left loads of marks. Mud's been trampled and scraped off here, drinks have been spilled, and obviously they've just been weathered over time. And I was so glad to finally be able to do this. I of course did under the picnic table and the bench too, but I didn't film that because you wouldn't have really been able to see what was going on. I'm filming this part of the voiceover at the end of May and it's absolutely pouring it down with rain. and I'm sat watching this footage thinking how lucky we were. Pretty much all of March and April where I live has been sunny, but not too warm, with only a few drizzles of rain. And there's been some days we've been able to get the pool out. And now we're on the 3rd day in a row of torrential rain. But I'm not complaining because the plants really needed it. And I'm a cosy kind of person. I love sitting inside with a blanket and a cosy series and listening to it tap on the windows. Let me see if I can show you it. It's such a lovely sound. I just hope it doesn't carry on all the way through June because I haven't filmed the final bits of the video at this point where I show you everything in bloom, and I would like a nice sunny day to film it for you. Anyway, just getting the final bits of chalk off the wall, and then I'm going to show you the before and afters of the jet wash. So this is what it's looking like now. How much better does that look? I started to forget the patio was even this colour once. All we need now is some new flowers and for the other flowers to start blooming to add a pop of colour. This is what it looked like before and now. I'm so happy with it. We've headed to the garden centre now to get some new plants and flowers. And if you want to skip past this bit, skip forward to 29 minutes 56 seconds. And as you can see here, I've got loads of new herbs because I want that rocky patch to be absolutely bursting with life. I don't really want to see the pebbles. That's what I'm going for. We found a lovely old resident cat next to the cactuses. I actually thought this was a fake cat at first. He was so still and calm. After I'd chosen all the plants, we had a walk round to the little play area. This garden centre's called Staunton Harold, and I used to come here with my mum when I was a little girl, and I always used to have a cheese salad in the cafe, so that's what I'm having today. Does anyone else do that? When you go to certain restaurants, you have to have the same meal because you associate that meal with that place. I do it with certain TV shows and movies as well. I've done it ever since I was a kid, but when I'm watching certain movies or series, I have to eat something particular because it reminds me of the first thing I ate when I first watched it. I know that's really strange, but I've done it ever since I was a kid, and my kids have started doing it as well. My youngest son watches this Minecraft building channel, but before he sits down to watch it, he has to get a packet of Red Walker's crisps every single time. But yeah, for me, Staunton Harold and cheese salad go hand in hand. Anyway, next we wandered down to the aquarium to have a look at all of the fish. These guys with the bubbly bits on their head are my absolute favourite. There used to be a huge sturgeon in this outside bit, and he used to just go round and round the edges in a circle and pop his little head out of the water. He was there for years, and I so hope he's finally been bought and he gets to live in a huge pond or lake now. That's what I'm going to tell myself anyway. It was April, so there was so much tree blossom everywhere. Everything smelled beautiful. The leaves on the different plants were a rainbow of colours, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful time of year. Next, we walked down to see Staunton Harold House, and more importantly, the grounds. This house was built for a wealthy family in the 18th century, and then eventually, when times started to change financially and socially, the upkeep of these stately homes became too much for the families, and it was originally set to be demolished in the 1950s, but thankfully it was sold off and turned into a hospice for people with cancer, I think. Don't quote me on this because my memory is not the best, but thank goodness it's still here because it would have been a huge shame. A lot of you won't know, but my mum's a paramedic, and she often used to take the residents to and from hospital. And then I think in the early 2000s it was brought privately, and now it's a family home again. But before that, my grandma said they used to have fetes here and people would sail in the pond and sell soaps and handcrafted baskets. And yeah, it's just a wonderful place all round. As you can see, the scenery is just stunning. Even the dandelions, which I know a lot of people hate, just look how gorgeous they are against the green grass. I don't get dandelion hate. They're often a bee's first food before everything else starts to bloom. And they're a great detoxifier too. As we walked further up, we saw a herd of cows with their brand new babies. Obviously, we were separated by a few fences. If you've grown up in the countryside, you'll know just how temperamental cows can be, especially when they've got little ones. I remember going on a walk with some of my cousins when I was younger, and we had to hide behind a bush for about 2 hours because we ended up in a cow field and got chased. We literally stayed hidden until they moved on. It's funny now, but it was terrifying at the time. I've been chased by all sorts. I've been chased by pigs and goats and geese. It's a rite of passage, I think, to get pecked by a goose or a swan at least once when you're a child. Funnily enough, the first time I was pecked by a swan was at Staunton Harold. It stood on my back. Anyway, after we got home, it was time to decide where all of my new herbs and flowers were going to go. So this little rocky patch has always gotten on my nerves, and initially the plan was to just get rid of it altogether. But then my mum told me about alpine plants and herbs, and since then I have become obsessed. And filling the area with plants is a much better plan, isn't it? Originally, when I started planting here, I wanted this entire area just to be full of herbs and things we could eat. But I've switched it up a bit this year. We have got more herbs, but I thought some flowers would be lovely here too. And they're going to add some variety. And of course, they're great for the wildlife. Some of the herbs actually do grow flowers themselves. The thyme I planted last year is quite established now and it grows little purple flowers. I know eventually the rosemary plant will too. And in warmer climates, lemon verbena grows flowers as well. I'm not sure it ever will here in the UK, but I'm just grateful it survived winter. And obviously you can see there the little white flowers on the alpine strawberries. So the new herbs we've got this year are basil, chamomile, oregano. We've got a curry plant, and that'll grow little yellow flowers. And we've got marjoram as well. And it's so lovely to be able to come out into the garden and pick herbs to cook with. And later on in the year, we'll have loads of fruit to eat as well. We've got a red currant plant, a plum tree, and loads of strawberries. And we've bought a new fruit bush from the garden centre, which I'll show you in a minute. Anyway, once I figured out where everything was going to go, I started planting. I tried to make sure the colourful flowers were spaced out evenly between all of the greenery. Ike was my little helper, and he was picking out leather jacket grubs from the soil. Yes, there were even leather jacket grubs amongst all of these pebbles. In fact, there were loads. So I ended up putting down another course of nematodes for good measure, because I would have been absolutely heartbroken if they destroyed all of the plants, especially the ones that have been thriving there for over a year now. At this point in the video, this clip is about a month after the first clips you saw, and you can already see how much the plants just in this one space have flourished. Everything's lovely and green now, things have doubled in size, and it's been so much fun documenting this process and seeing changes as the seasons have changed. And how much we've changed. From this video to the last, my little boy has grown from a toddler just getting his foot in to the little chap you see helping me here. And yeah, I can't wait to see what the garden looks like next summer. Honestly, I'm going to be so sad to part with it. I've poured so much love into this garden, and I don't want to leave my plants behind when we move house. I'm going to try and uproot as many as I can, but I can imagine there will be some whose root systems are just too entrenched. But never mind, it'll be a gift to the next tenants. I just really hope they want to take care of them. Charlie was on clean-up duty. I was a bit stressed because, as you saw, I'd only just jet washed this path and already I was covering it with soil. Look how big the sage has gotten. It gets even bigger than this throughout the video, so I may need to cut it back to give the other plants a chance. I do need to add here as well, because I'm now planting some non-edible plants, my children are very aware which ones they can and can't eat, and they never eat anything without double checking with me first. That's something that's kind of been drilled into them in woodland walks and with my mum at the allotment anyway. They can identify a lot of different plants and what's poisonous and what's not, and I think that's such an important life skill that I think we're losing. We're becoming very disconnected from nature and where our food comes from these days, aren't we? Which is a huge shame, but all is not lost yet. I had to pull some of the alpine strawberries out to make room. Like I said earlier on in the video, they are very fast growing and they spread really fast. So I had no qualms removing some of them to add a bit more variety to this rocky patch. I actually potted some of them and my mum took them back to her allotment, so they weren't just discarded. Don't worry, Ike's not throwing leather jacket grubs onto the grass, he's throwing the worms onto there. We want to keep the worms. It's funny, in my last video, people were confusing worms with leather jacket grubs and they were like, the worms are good for the soil. Worms are excellent for the soil. Leather jacket grubs, not so much. I've also had their caterpillars, they turn into butterflies. They turn into daddy longlegs. Which is funny again because daddy longlegs in America are spiders and daddy longlegs in the UK are crane flies. Little bit of a tidbit there for you. I've also had a lot of people already this year, because I post shorter versions of these clips on TikTok and Facebook, When I posted in April that the leather jacket grubs were back, I got so many comments. No, this doesn't look like damage from leather jacket grubs. You've used the wrong grass seed. It's a drainage problem. You're mowing wrong. As I was sat there looking at the leather jacket grubs. Social media can be a bizarre place. As you know, I love to hear tips and anecdotes and advice. It's a great way to learn. But just flat out telling someone they're wrong with no context, very odd. Sometimes I think people just want to feel clever. So I try to rein in my own need to be correct in the comments. I am right though. Although the people that said it's bad drainage, also right. So swings and roundabouts. Anyway, as you can see, the root system of the mint is so strong and it spans so much further than you'd think. So before I planted this oregano, I pulled as much of it up as I could. The roots were so thick and I had to cut them with clippers. And I can imagine it's all going to grow back. I'm not sure what will happen to the oregano if it does. But this is only my 3rd year gardening, and if it's a mistake, it's a mistake. This is how big the leather jacket grubs were in that little rocky patch. They were so chunky, it's obvious they'd been eating a lot. But yeah, when it comes to the garden, I still want to experiment with it all and see basically what I can get away with, and whether if I keep vigilantly pruning the mint back, whether it will take over everything, or whether I'll at least be able to keep it contained. Especially because it's not really got a path to go anywhere but across the little rocky patch. We'll see. Anyway, next it was time to plant our new fruit bush, and we bought a loganberry. It's meant to taste like a mixture between raspberry and blackberry, so I'm excited for that to start bearing fruit. I don't think it will be this year, but fingers crossed for next. I decided to put it in the lavender's old pot because I really liked there being a pot on either side of the bench. I swapped it round with the rosemary because I know it's going to grow a lot taller and I don't want to block the jasmine or the plum tree. So let me just give you a mid-video tour and show you what everything was looking like at this point. So again, I started pruning the old foliage back in March. Not much had actually started growing at that point. And now, a month later, everything is looking so green and happy. My vision for this little rocky area really was coming to life. And if you've watched the first video, I think you really will appreciate the difference. 3 years ago when I started this garden project, I wouldn't have even been able to afford this many plants, or repeat nematode treatments, or the picnic table we sit and have our dinners on in the sun. So I'm so incredibly grateful for the position we're in now. It might not seem much to some, but it means everything to me to be able to do up this little area and make it lovely for my kids. And like I said, I'm going to be really sad to part with it. As you can see, the plum tree's got loads of big green leaves now. The red currant plant started to get buds where the currants are going to grow. At the start of the video, this and the wisteria were just a bunch of twigs. And now the wisteria was starting to get its first little shoots. The wisteria was the last thing to start blooming in the garden. Next, I planted this sunflower that Ike had brought home from play school for Mother's Day. It had a little poem on it that read, "Best friends forever, Mummy and me, picking flowers and climbing trees. A shoulder to cry on, secrets to share, warm hearts and hands that really care." And of course it made me well up. And things like that always make me feel like I'm not being a good enough mum, and I don't know why. So I put that in with the beans that he brought home the other week. Look how they're growing now. Moving into the month of May now, and this door was in desperate need of a good deep clean. And you probably can't tell just how much yet, but wait till I actually start cleaning it. It's a completely different colour by the end. I wish I'd have kept my stepdad's jet wash to do it though, because it would have saved me hours of time. Look at the difference on just that bit alone. But yeah, I had to go with a trusty Scrub Daddy and pink stuff instead. Never mind, I needed a good arm workout. And it was satisfying to clean. Aside from just being grubby, the doorsteps faded so much, and I thought it would be nice to touch up the paint and make it all squeaky clean and looking brand new to go with the newly washed patio and all of the lovely plants. I don't know if you can see, but the frame around the glass has gone like a yellowy colour. I did think the sun had done that, but it all came away after I scrubbed it, so maybe it was just dirt. Or someone suggested it might be a build-up of pollen. I don't know. So I was literally just cleaning it in sections and rinsing it away with a measuring jug. Again, I know there are so many more efficient ways to do this. What can I say? I just don't think things through properly. Next time I have to do it, I will just use a jet wash. Although, to be fair, I haven't cleaned the outside of this door the whole 6 years we've lived here. Don't judge me. I just didn't think to. And for saying it's been 6 years, I don't think it looked too bad at all. especially considering we had 2 dogs at one point and they'd scratch mud up it constantly to let us know when they wanted to come back in. Some of you might not remember our other dog, Onion. He passed away pretty soon after I started this channel, but yeah. By the way, I know I've pretty much lived in PJs throughout this entire video so far. I think there was only one clip where I was wearing normal daytime clothes, but I just want to be comfy, especially when I'm home. Honestly, when I come home from work, the first thing I do is change into PJ bottoms. I cannot relax in normal clothes. I've literally got to the point in life now where all I want to be is comfy, and that has far surpassed my desire to look even remotely presentable. If I could live in PJs and slippers 24/7, I would. Anyway, when I got to the top bit, every time I rinsed the pink stuff away, it made the window more and more dirty. So don't worry, I am going to clean that as well. Now, this bit is my favourite because it really shows how deceptive the colour was. Like, it looked fairly clean, didn't it, before that? I know you can see a little bit of mud, but wait till I wash the residue off. When I posted this particular bit on TikTok, I couldn't say residue in a sentence. It kept coming out residue no matter how many times I tried to say it. It started to get to the point where residue felt like a made-up word. It is hard doing voiceovers sometimes because my brain works faster than my mouth can say words. And I also get a bee in my bonnet. If I want to say something in a particular way, I have to say it. So I really wanted to say that residue sentence. I couldn't just say something else, but my brain just wasn't having it. And yeah, I get a lot of questions asking me about voiceovers and how I managed to talk so confidently and for so long. It literally is just practice and not taking yourself too seriously. I kind of do voiceovers in the same way I clean my house. I ping pong back and forth. I'll watch the video and then my brain will just go off on tangents, and then I'll snap back because something's happening on the screen that I need to talk about, and that just keeps it conversational. But yeah, like with everything, it is just practice, and I'm always trying to get better at what I do. It's not always the case though. Some videos and voiceovers are going to flop compared to others, but that's okay. It's all a learning curve. And even the ones that didn't do so well in terms of views, they still mean a lot and resonate with certain people, and that's what's most important. Before YouTube, I started posting on TikTok, and I didn't speak a single word in my videos. I did want to do voiceovers eventually, but I was so scared. I found it all so cringy as well, listening to my voice back. And there was a part of me that wanted to do the ASMR cleans, but my house just isn't quiet enough for that. There's always background noise. Even if it isn't the kids or the dog, it's something on the telly because I can't cope with silence. It's strange, but it feels like my mind's being unproductive if it's not processing some sort of stimuli or information in the background. This is another reason I talk all the way through the videos. It's for people like me who need the constant chatter to be productive. Even when I'm going to sleep, I have to have a comfort series on in the background. And plus, doing voiceovers, I get to connect with you guys and chat about struggles with keeping on top of things and disorganisation. And I think connection and authenticity is so important, especially in a world that can feel very lonely sometimes. And now my voiceovers have evolved and I'm a body double buddy, and I'm so glad it turned out this way, because I get to be the person I wish I had when I felt like I was the only person who struggled with messiness. I've come to find it's not the case, and there are so many of us out there who need that community. Anyway, I was pretty much too small to reach that top bit, even on a chair. And then I knew I was going to completely drench myself trying to use the measuring jug, so I got the hosepipe out and drenched myself anyway. Yes, I've had the hosepipe the entire time. Why didn't I just use that initially? I don't know. At this point, everything needed to go in the washing machine anyway. I was covered in pink stuff and mud. I stunk like a badger because it was deceptively sunny outside, and for some reason I kept my hoodie on the entire time. Next, I realised there was loads of crusty stuff underneath the door frame, so I coaxed all of that out with the hose pipe. So much fun that was. Then I realised the pink stuff paste had kind of stained the patio, so I tried to scrub all of that away, because again, I'd only just jet washed. I honestly didn't think any of this through, I'm not going to lie. I just knew I didn't want to use bleach or anything harsh because I'd only just grown the grass back. By the way, at this point there had been a bumblebee visiting the wisteria every day for a week, and I was so excited. Still no residents in the bee hotel though, and I went to my in-laws' house for Sunday dinner, I think the day before this, and they'd bought a bee hotel from the garden centre the day before that. and there were already bees going back and forth. I was like, what the hell? But then their garden's really established and they've got loads more flowers than me, so it's a better choice really. I was just shocked at how soon they started to gather towards it. Next, I got an old toothbrush to clean the door frame. I think most of this was just sand from the sandpit, to be honest, and I could have gone without using the toothbrush, but never mind. Can you see what I mean about the doorstep? It's all just faded and gone like a kind of chalky colour. So I got a tiny little pot of waterproof paint for that. My only issue is, when I'm painting stuff like this, I can't stop it from looking textured. I don't understand how people do it, unless they do it with a spray painting tool. Even when I'm painting the walls, you can just see all of the brush strokes and patchiness. Same with a roller. I just don't know what I'm doing wrong. Anyway, look how sparkly clean the door frame is now. Onto the window now, and apologies if you can't see most of this. Apparently, after 2 years, I still can't figure out where best to position a camera. To be fair to myself, I'm trying to find a good angle for 2 different cameras, because I also film in horizontal format. So it's a struggle to prioritise which camera gets the best spot. Especially when filming in smaller rooms or trying to get close-ups. That's why you'll occasionally see the other tripod in the background. But hey, this is real life, and I think sometimes seeing a tripod is a good reminder of that. We can get really sucked into social media sometimes and forget that even the most realistic creators and realistic videos require a certain amount of orchestration and performance. I remember I filmed a day in the life video once, on a good day and a bad day, and both videos started out me walking into the kitchen and turning a light on. And someone pointed out that, you've got to come into the kitchen, set up the camera and walk back out to walk back in. Just interrupting myself here to say this is the finished result because I forgot to press play on the camera again. And now we're moving on to putting a protective coat on the picnic table because this is something I didn't get round to doing last year. And in 1 year, it's already starting to become weathered. So I want to prevent any more damage while it's still salvageable. I'm not going to paint it grey though, you'll be happy to hear. There was a big thing last year when I decided to paint the fence, sandpit and pergola grey. Millennial grey strikes again. But my thought process was that the grey would look great against the red brick. And then once all of the plants started to grow, that would add another layer of contrast and it had all come together really nicely. So I just had to clean it and sand it first. And back to what I was saying about setting up cameras to walk into rooms and all of that jazz. It can feel a little bit cringy when you think about it, but it's because I'm creating and setting the scene for you. All creators want the viewer to be able to become immersed in the storyline, whether that's a genuine story about what you're doing through the day or a made-up one. It's a visual telling or retelling of that story. People do this in different ways, and I, like a lot of people, try to make it as authentic and true to life as possible. But at the end of the day, I don't have a team of people following me around with cameras. I have to position the cameras myself and make things entertaining and easy to follow visually. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes and a lot of thought that goes into something seemingly very simple. So if you're watching a day in the life and it's like someone getting out of bed and you think to yourself, they've had to get out of bed, set up the camera, and then get back into bed and close their eyes, it seems so disingenuous. I understand. And of course people don't have to do that, but oftentimes they're adding that little flourish to immerse you in the experience, just like when you're watching a movie. I know these two things are different, but we're also allowed artistic license when telling the little stories of our day. It doesn't mean it isn't the truth of what happened. It's a retelling of that particular few minutes. It's just how we open or close the scene. And then when we're up and about, we can just carry the camera around with us as we go. Charlie's mum got us a little ladybird house, and I thought it would be ideal for this corner, but I had no idea how to install it properly. It came with a stick, and I thought I had to push the stick into the ground until you couldn't see it anymore. And I thought to myself, there's no way that's happening in this garden. You get about 5 centimetres into the soil and hit concrete. So I just placed it flat on the ground for the time being, and then I got to sanding the table. We also got some ladybird food for the little house because it's meant to attract them. I don't know how effective it is, but if we can get some ladybirds in the garden, that'll be great because their main source of food is aphids, and aphids can be a bit overwhelming on certain plants. Now, what I'm putting on the table is wood waterproofing liquid. Apparently you're meant to put a coat of something else onto it afterwards, and I have a bad feeling I was meant to put something else on it beforehand as well. That's according to a 5-second glance as I was buying it, but quite frankly, this was expensive enough on its own, so I'll have another look into it after payday. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's better than nothing, isn't it? You should wear gloves when you're using this, by the way. I just didn't have any on me. So I just went over the entire table. You're meant to do a minimum of 2 layers and don't let the first layer dry before you apply the second layer. And if you get any on the slabs or patio, you're meant to rinse it off immediately. I think because it'll probably form a waterproof layer on that as well, and it'll just look weird when it rains, won't it? So I was just rinsing underneath the table with a hose pipe as I went. By the way, I know throughout this entire video I have gone on so many irrelevant tangents that have absolutely nothing to do with gardening. So apologies if this wasn't what you were expecting. Regular viewers, I know this is probably exactly what you were expecting, and I appreciate you so much for being here. I haven't said it in a very long time. But yeah, anyone who's gotten to this point in the video, I really hope you enjoyed your visit today. I hope you enjoyed watching the process, or if you were looking for some information, that you've learnt something, or if you just needed to be kept company or find a bit of a wholesome distraction from the darkness of the world at the minute. I hope I've been able to be that for you. Anyway, as I was finishing off the table, Charlie got home from work and figured out how to assemble the Ladybird house pretty much instantly, even after I'd thrown away the instructions that I didn't even bother reading. Isn't it interesting how different people's brains can be? How something so simple to one person feels unsolvable to another. Just brings me back to the importance of community. If you've followed my channel for a long time, you'll know that I talk a lot about neurodivergence and its impact on my family, and specifically how we keep on top of the house, or struggle to be more precise. But for all of the things we struggle with, we excel in other places, and things that other people find difficult are second nature to us. I went to the garden centre with my mum and my grandma and ended up coming back with loads more plants, so here's me planting them. But yeah, when it comes down to community, and specifically when we used to live in big groups, all types of brains would have been valued and integral to the continuation of our species. Something that in today's society is viewed as a dysfunction would have been a necessary difference. For example, a lot of people with ADHD are night owls. Not on the planet for a good part of the day, especially in the morning, but highly functional and alert and the most productive at night and in the early hours of the morning when most other people are sleeping. This is something that makes us struggle in today's society when we all have to kind of adhere to the same patterns. But how important that would have been for early humans. A few people alert and keeping watch while everyone else slept. And people with heightened senses or pattern recognition that struggle with the overwhelming amount of noise and stimuli in today's society, those senses would have been vital to a group who needed to protect themselves against a number of predators and different dangers. Doesn't it make you wonder if the problem isn't in all of these different neurotypes, but in the way the world is today? I think most of us feel this kind of uneasiness and discontent at the minute, and it's been brewing for a number of years. And it's because it's obvious we're viewed less and less as human beings and more cogs in a machine. And this knowing that this isn't the way it's supposed to be. We aren't meant to be this individualistic. We're meant to be looking after each other. We're meant to be following our passions and honing in and perfecting our particular skills and gifts and feeling the joy of sharing that with others. We're meant to have free time. We're meant to have a connection to our food, and our grandparents are meant to be under the same roof or close enough to be able to pass on knowledge to our kids. Did you know that older people who live in multi-generational households often live longer? I know the way things are now makes that impossible for a lot of families, and not every family gets on, but yeah. I don't know why I've started rambling about this, but gardening, growing food, different neurotypes, it's all linked. And you're not weird if you feel in your gut something's off, or if you have a craving for a home or life that you can't quite put your finger on. Most of us are feeling it. Anyway, next up it was Charlie's turn to do his favourite thing in the garden, neatening up the edges of the lawn. He has his own special tool especially for this. It's not essential, but it does seem to make the garden come together, doesn't it? I didn't want it to be too uniform though, because I just think that looks a bit Stepford Wives-esque. It's all up to the individual though, isn't it? Ike was eager to get involved. Apparently this is more difficult than it looks. I wouldn't know though, because I've never tried it myself. I need to try and get rid of all the grass growing in between the slabs as well. Honestly, I didn't notice it until just now as I'm watching the footage back. What's the best way to do that? Do I just use something sharp or do I pull it out by hand? That's on my to-do list now anyway. And another thing on my to-do list is to plan a little holiday, because the months are just flying by and it's almost July, which means it's almost the summer holidays in the UK and the kids are going to be off school for 6 weeks and I have planned nothing. If you've watched my latest short, you'll know that we've had a lot going on, but I always try to at least take the boys to a beach in the UK each summer. They've been desperate to go back to Cromarty, which is where we went last year, and it's a lovely little holiday, to be fair. Not too busy, because that's something I always try to avoid, places where there are always huge crowds. I panic at the best of times when I take the kids out somewhere unfamiliar. I'm just terrified they're going to get lost. And that's been made even worse by a holiday we went on with Charlie's family a few years back. I think we were in Tenby. But we were out at a restaurant in the evening and Charlie's parents had decided to pop out to look at some of the shops while me, Charlie and the boys finished eating. I think Rudy had finished eating too, actually, and they'd asked him if he wanted to join them and he'd said no, adamant he didn't want to. And then in a split second, and I mean a split second, he'd vanished from the table. 1 minute he was there, I looked at my plate and then he was gone. Turns out he'd decided, oh yeah, actually, I will go and look in the shops, but didn't bother telling us that, just ducked under the table and left the restaurant himself. And we're really on the ball as parents because I'm naturally an anxious person as it is, and I cannot express how fast he just disappeared. Bear in mind, this is a busy, busy time of day in seaside towns. There were people everywhere. 17th of May now, and here is the wisteria in bloom, and lots of happy bees have been visiting constantly. But yeah, so I was in hysterics, ran to the bathroom, looked under all of the tables, ran out into the street, crowds of people everywhere. We found Charlie's parents and they were really close to the restaurant, just looking in a shop window. He wasn't with them, panicking even more. And then I looked towards the path that takes you to the beach and there he was running back towards us, so he must have ran down there. He's crying, bless him, because he thought he'd lost everyone. And it must have been about 5 minute tops where we were looking for him. But it felt like 2 hours. Honestly, my whole world was crumbling because that's what happens, isn't it? It's immediately worst case scenario, your stomach's in knots, you're imagining your life without them, and yeah, no large crowds for us until they're older. Anyway, this is what things were looking like mid-May. Charlie had bought a bird bath from the garden centre because at this point we had so many birds visiting the garden and they were picking so many leather jackets out of the lawn. They were having a feast. It was lovely to watch. I think it must have been to feed their babies because after the end of May, they just stopped visiting. This was the garden in the sunshine. The first of the strawberries were starting to ripen. Okay, let me help you. Let's hope it's ready. I think it is. Okay. Hey. Nice! And then at the start of June, everything was in full bloom. The alpine strawberries were ready to be picked, the lavender had grown a few flowers, and I am so pleased to announce that one bee finally decided to use the bee hotel. Nearing the end of June, Ike's sunflower was in full bloom. We'd already harvested most of the beans, but I didn't get a video of that because I was actually in bed poorly that day, so Charlie and Ike picked them. The lemongrass had started to grow absolutely gigantic. The chamomile had started to grow flowers. Sorry, that's not lemongrass, that was lemon verbena. The lemongrass didn't make it. But yeah, everything seemed to be thriving in this little area. We did have an issue with slugs in May that ate some of the flowers that I'd bought, which was upsetting, but it is what it is. The mint, thankfully, seems to have stayed contained to its little area in the corner. Again, if that changes, I'll find a way to deal with it, but so far so good. The red currants are so close to turning red now, they're just teetering. So that's exciting because these are my eldest son's favourite. And the jasmine is just starting to bloom. The great thing about the plants in this garden is some of them bloom at different times. So as the wisteria is starting to fade, because they start to bloom really early on in spring, but as the wisteria fades, the jasmine blooms, and I think that's just lovely. And there you have it, this year's garden transformation from the start of March to the end of June. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again very soon.